how do you think the world will look like when we start to emerge from this COVID-19 pandemic?
I think it's a very interesting question because everybody is, I read a lot of things about security and Middle East, and everybody is sort of speculating on what will happen. And my feeling is that those speculations or visions are sort of on two different lines. One is the kind of we should cooperate, we are all in the same boat, and the kind of Gorbachev appeal that the world should come together after this virus. And there are a lot of thoughts in this because we are, this is a common enemy and we should fight it together. But on the other hand, there's this other side, which is about a new wave of competition and competition among the superpowers, China and Russia. Already the virus has become a sort of an arena for this competition. Where did it start, or what was the role of the Chinese? And at the same time, among this new competition, there will be also a lot of failed states, a lot of maybe extremist groups that will sort of be emboldened. So it's a very two-deal a picture of two parts which are sort of very different. If you then go on to the security question, I mean, what will this mean for security and maybe even the NPT? I think it will mean a lot of famine, a lot of unemployment, a lot of poverty probably in the world, and it's difficult to know what will be the consequences of this for violence. I mean, will people just accept and can we survive in the current environment, or will there be much more dissatisfaction, much more violence? And one of the factors that could increase this violence is the question that, like there was the Cold War and the Soviet Union could hold the other part in peace, and the US could hold the other part, and after there was the hegemony of the US, now there's sort of a lack of global leadership, and China and US are fighting, the superpowers are fighting. EU is not very well placed to sort of take any leadership role, and I think there's a lot of middle powers like Australia and maybe some of the Nordic countries also that see their chance of becoming kind of leaders. So we see from the security environment point of view a lot of changes. If we then think about the disarmament work in general, I think there's one very positive sign is I think it will be impossible if I look at the increase in the military budgets in the SIPRI figures for 2019 and the increases. I think it will be impossible after the virus or even during the virus to invest more money on the military. I think we'll see a less money spent on modernization of nuclear weapons and hopefully less money spent on arms transfers. But it's difficult to say, but I think this would be, I mean, in the political field, if I look at this as an old politician, I think it would be difficult for the military to sort of increase budgets a lot. And I think, for example, in the Scandinavian countries, all are looking at buying fighter aircraft. And I think it may be at least delayed and maybe even turned down. So this is, in a way, for moving the nuclear weapons money, there will be less money to be moved, hopefully. And another thing is that the US will have less influence. I think, of course, there has been all these histories about less US influence for a long, long time. But I think now we see actually that also on the transatlantic EU-US relationship, that it's impossible to keep a relationship if the other part never even deals with you as an ally. So less influence for the US. What this will mean for the arms reductions and multilateralism is not easy to say, but I hope that it will increase multilateralism. The problem is that the UN is not in a very good position, so to sort of take the leadership in multilateralism. And probably after this virus, I think it has been very interesting that there was not, what do you call it, the weapon arms still stand as the General Secretary of the UN was asking for. Mm-hmm. So in a way, it's a bad sign for the UN. And the question is how the new forms of multilateralism then will emerge. I think the task for our work will be very much a question of building trust. I think the virus crisis also shows that countries that have trust and where the leadership has been trusted, or also people trust each other, have been better off than other countries. So I think that's an important thing. Another positive sort of possibility is, of course, that always that in turbulent times there's space for new ideas, that there's possibility of finding new ways. Things that were impossible just 2 weeks ago are suddenly more possible. And I think one of the things that you can see the curves right now is the use of oil and the fossil energy. It's just going directly down. And if you had asked somebody whether this was possible, everybody would have said it's not going to be possible. And now we have these examples. So maybe even on climate change, there are some positive conclusions.
And how do you think that all of this will affect the work of people in the anti-nuclear movement around the world? Do you see it as an opening of something positive, or do you see it something which is kind of dark and dangerous?
I think it has been quite dangerous until now. I think the past couple of years have been very dangerous in terms of increases of risk of nuclear wars and so forth. But in the future, if you think that the economies will be very tight and people will have to, and states will have to sort of look at their national budgets, I think that one of the positive signs could be that less money will be available, and particularly for nuclear weapons. And also that if there is some violence as a consequence of the aftermath of this virus crisis, it's not violence that can be fought with nuclear weapons. On the other hand, the fact that maybe increase the risk of nuclear weapons use is the competition among the superpowers. That this may be a risk factor, but hopefully I think our work can sort of get a new wave of activities in terms of actually seeing the military budget decreasing and also the role of nuclear weapons decreasing.
And on the whole, would you say that you're optimistic or pessimistic going into the next few months?
I must say that I am optimist, and I'm currently writing a book on how to renegotiate the nuclear order. So in this way, I have to look at the positive signs and the kind of changes that are needed and how we promote disarmament.
Tarja, thank you so much for talking to us.